So, how are you this morning? You guys are awesome. It's like, 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning of a 3-day weekend. I told the Wikipedia guys, I'm like, the chances of getting 2 people here seem 0, but you guys are awesome. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming and celebrating with us. My name is Mark Hansen. I am the director of the Brown Institute, which is located right below us. It's been dubbed the Playpen, which the serious research that goes on there. I don't know. Anyway, the Brown, just a second about where you are and the Brown Institute. So you are in Pulitzer Hall. Pulitzer Prizes are given out here. This is the sort of the house that Pulitzer built, and there's a vibrant journalism program that goes on here. We wanted to co-sponsor or co-host Wikipedia Day because of the interesting evolving relationship between journalism and Wikipedia, between AI and journalism, AI and Wikipedia. It all kind of is coming together in this murky thing. So you're in the journalism school. This is called the lecture hall. This is where we'll have one track of talks. In the back, on the other side where you had breakfast, is the world room. There's one bathroom up here and a women's bathroom. And then in the basement, there are a full set of options. What else? Right downstairs is the playpen where Giancarlo and others will be leading tutorials, and then across from that, on the other side, is the Stabile Center, and it'll be overflow. So if we end up with more friends during the day, we can seat them in various places. Just a second about the Brown Institute. We've been around for about 12 years here at the J School. We're mostly a granting organization. We give away about $1 million a year in grants that support technology to advance the practice of journalism, to shape journalism in some way. And then we also help sponsor events like this, right? That bring interesting ideas into our community. So I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Molly, who represents Wikimedia New York City.
Ladies, wait. Can I hear myself? On?
You're loud enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Molly Stark-Dean. Pronouns she, her, hers. And it is the greatest privilege of my career to serve as the advocate for Wikipedia Day's illustrious opening roundtable covering Wikipedia, news, and AI. Now, friends and enemies, I heard that the Oxford comma faction will be here today. And since the heel commas will be here, our champ is not going anywhere. So someone tell the champ that is waiting for them is a prompt writing, comma busting, back-breaking beast of journalism. This vanquisher's pronouns are she, her, hers. She kicks the A in AP and AI. Her name is the immortal Aimee Rinehart. Newsies, techies, and wikis, you left your house and walked into mine. The world does not have a voice of its own. It can't tell you what it wants, what it needs, but it's yearning for something to point it in the right direction. A savior, perhaps. My soul smiles at just the thought of your quivering hands clapping for our next champion. You may call them a journalist. You may call them a commenter, a reporter, or a founder. They are the color red in a world full of black and white. And if you value your ability to breathe, do not get too close. The one who can save us all has the pronouns she, her, and hers. Save us, Julie Angwin. In case you forgot, My name is Molly Stark Dean, and I want to remind everyone here at the respected Brown Institute for Media Innovation, I am a certified nerd and a bona fide hack, and you can't teach that. And right here, this is our next champ, and their Twitter account is, sorry, Aimee, X, formerly known as Twitter. Their character count on Twitter is 4 characters long, and you can't teach that. Are he, him, his, Sree, Sreenivasan. Let me tell you a story. Recently, at WikiCon, this Wikimedia didn't just evangelize, didn't just editorialize, they dominated. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, there is a Wiki Hall of Famers, there are Wiki legends, and there are Wiki superstars. And the key to that is that they're all plural. They're lumped all together, and then there's only one that stands head and shoulders above the rest on their own platform. There's only one beast incarnate. There's only one Wikimedia champion. And there's only one moderator of this panel. And their pronouns are he, him, his. His wiki domination affords me, Molly Stark Dean, the opportunity to proclaim myself the advocate for, the ruler of the tech curious, the Wikimania conqueror, the reigning, defending, undisputed Wiki champion of the world, Andrew Lee. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Molly Stark Dean, and I have one last thing to tell you. Wikipedia will have an awesome birthday. That's not a prediction. It's a spoiler. Oh,
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Molly. We should rent her for all your events and bar mitzvahs. But I want to give the floor to Richard Nipel first to tell us a little bit more about the day, and then we'll get started. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Happy Wikipedia Day. So glad to have you with us here today. It's being co-organized by Wikimedia New York City, your local Wikimedia nonprofit and chapter, supporting activities in the New York greater metropolitan area. This is our first Wikipedia Day at this scale since 2019, since pre-COVID. So we're really glad to come back together and have you all. Of course, we have events throughout the year. You're very welcome to join us. Our next Wiki Wednesday Salon is February 21st. We might have some others. I wanted to just remind everyone today that you're under the code of conduct policy for Wikimedia New York City. So please treat each other decently and with respect. If someone tells you to leave them alone, please leave them alone. If you have any security concerns or safety issues, please get in touch with me or anyone else who's wearing one of these yellow vests, and we'll probably hand a couple more of them out to other safety volunteers. And please observe the masking policy because of we have a very full crowd, which is a good thing. And so try to wear a mask unless you're eating or presenting. Thanks. And also, if anyone wants to learn the basics of Wikipedia, user complex rational John Carlo is going to lead something downstairs in the hacking room / playpen. So if you want to get started on that, you can join that as well. Thanks.
Okay, let me just make sure we have everything here. All right. All right, I want to show you an image that's very weird, very strange. So hopefully you can see that with the sun streaming in here. But this is a stained glass that's actually at the other end of the hallway in the world room of this wonderful building here. Right now it's covered up by the screen, but we can raise it so you can see it. So look at this for a second and think about, why is this such an odd stained glass? It's of the Statue of Liberty, which is an incredible icon here in New York City. But look at it for another second or so, and you start to see this is a really weird stained glass. Because what you would think is the focus of the stained glass, the Statue of Liberty, is not the focus of the stained glass. What is the focus of the stained glass is really weird. Look at the sun that's coming out. It's emanating not from the top, not from the torch, not from the head, but from the feet of the Statue of Liberty. Weird, right? The brightest and most prominent part of the image is the bottom, not the top, where the Statue of Liberty's crown and head is. So you're probably looking at this like, well, this is probably an intentional choice, but why is it this way? And there's a really interesting story behind this, which you may not know, even if you're lifelong New Yorkers, is that the Statue of Liberty was given to us by the French in pieces, incomplete. And it was given to us like this. And the French said, here's the statue. You need to find somewhere to put it. And it was up to the Americans on our side to figure out, how do we put it in a place that raises up and we can see it? So in fact, before it was actually erected on Ellis Island, it was actually torn around in pieces. And you can see on the right-hand side, we actually had this kind of dismembered arm of the Statue of Liberty sticking out there, which I think back then was probably really impressive. But I think today we see it as kind of scary and freaky, probably because you've seen Planet of the Apes and you've seen this thing sticking out because post-apocalypse, right? But this is what the Statue of Liberty was before they found a way to mount it on a pedestal. And what they said was, well, why don't we go out there and have a fundraising campaign and try to fund the pedestal that will hold the Statue of Liberty? And they were doing okay, but it was chugging along, but it wasn't really going that quickly. So about halfway through the campaign, Joseph Pulitzer of the New York World newspaper said, wait a minute, we should have the people pay for this with their pennies, with their, small change. And what he did was he came up with a fundraising campaign that said, anyone who wants to donate, I will publish their name in the New York World newspaper, which is pretty cool, right? So this is what he said. We must raise the money. The world is the people's paper, and now it appeals to the people to come forward and raise money. Let us not wait for the millionaires to give us this money. It is not a gift from the millionaires, but a gift to the whole people of America, which is pretty cool. So Pulitzer printed the names of the people who donated, and it often came with details, and people could leave little notes. By August 1885, there were more than 120,000 people who had donated upwards of 100,000, enough to finish the pedestal. So what's really interesting is that we're here celebrating Wikipedia Day, when in fact, on the other end of this hallway was like the first real crowdsourced crowdfunding of something that we see and take for granted today as the base of the Statue of Liberty, right? So I think it's really interesting just to think about this for a second, that we actually in the building that had crowdsourcing as part of its history, and now we're talking about the greatest crowdsourcing project that we think we've ever seen in terms of producing knowledge, not just donating money. So I find this is funny because you're probably all sick and tired of seeing Jimmy Wells's face every year on fundraisers, but maybe now you'll appreciate that he's continuing a long tradition of people, individuals giving to build something amazing. And I did not even see this until I was doing research this year. But maybe you'll have a little more sympathy when they say that Jimmy Wells's creepy stare is a meme on the internet, which I did not know, that there's actually whole websites dedicated to different poses of Jimmy Wales fundraising in weird ways. So this is a way to remind us that crowdsourcing is actually an old thing. And this building actually has a monument to that. And hopefully we'll raise that screen. You can see the great stained glass there. Another reason why I bring this up is one of the goals of the hackathon space downstairs, the playpen, is throughout the day, we welcome you to go down there and try your hand at editing Wikipedia, talk to expert Wikipedia editors on how to get involved with editing Wikipedia. And actually, the images we have of that stained glass, or the information we have in Wikipedia, is not very good. So actually, you could do quite a service by taking photos of it, uploading it, and creating more content in Wikipedia around the Statue of Liberty pedestal and that stained glass that we have on the other end there. So I thought I would start our conversation today with our great panel in the journalism school about the kind of the four fundamentals that make Wikipedia run. There's a lot of different policies, a lot of different things that have accumulated over the many years that Wikipedia has been in existence. But I usually like to tell people these are kind of the big four things that make Wikipedia run. And if it doesn't, it shouldn't surprise you that we're kind of a big fan of acronyms in the Wikipedia universe. So these would make no sense to you unless we actually told you about them, right? So NPOV is really the only reason why Wikipedia can work. How can you get hundreds, thousands of contributors collaborating around writing an article? Well, you have to agree on this idea of a neutral point of view. Try to write an article such that all sides can agree on the facts and the way that the story is told in the article. The other thing that is fundamental to Wikipedia is there's no original research. We don't want your novel idea of how time works or how gravity works. We need verifiable information from reliable sources, which are the last two things here. So if you think about these four acronyms, NPOV, the neutral point of view, no original research, we want reliable sources to provide verifiable information. That's why we're having this panel today, talking about what does the news and journalism landscape look like right now in feeding or sustaining this mission of Wikipedia. And also, more importantly, I'm sure everyone has seen some of the developments in artificial intelligence and AI. So what are the implications of AI now that it's in the mix here? Right? So I thought what I would do is I'd love to throw it to Aimee first, because Aimee is really someone who's worked in the mainstream news with the New York Times and many organizations. When we reached out to her, she goes, "Oh, I'm a fan of Wikipedia." And I'm always fascinated by folks in the news industry and their relationship with Wikipedia, because we know that reporters use it maybe as the first stop for reporting. It's where, as Craig Newmark likes to say, where facts from the newspaper go to live in Wikipedia. But as we're celebrating, Wikipedia Day, can you give us some thoughts about like what have you seen with Wikipedia over your many years, going from like nothing to now being one of the most visited websites on the internet? And I'd love to hear your reflections on what you think about Wikipedia in relation to what you see as the news.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most, it's the one example I often point to when people are like, you can't trust things on the internet, or you can't trust large language models or anything like that. It's like, well, in the beginning, Wikipedia was not the trusted source. And people were, teachers forbade students to use it as a primary source. And then Wikipedia solved that issue. They solved that issue with using I'm losing the word now, but the where you annotate and document and you send people off to the primary source. And so I think it's a great example of how an immature technology ends up maturing. And I think, like anybody who's a naysayer now about artificial intelligence, we're in a very infancy, the infancy stage of this, and we don't know where it's going. It's probably not going to be on our benefit, but if we can figure it out now, we can maybe bring it to help us with our news production and our output. And just a side note, the Associated Press, for those who don't know, it's 187 years old. It's a not-for-profit cooperative, and it was built under the idea that if you can't send a reporter to Ukraine, our team can, and you can support that by becoming a member or a subscriber. So it does have its roots in lifting all boats, and I really like that ethos, which appeals to me, and what I really like about Wikipedia.
Great, thank you. Sree and I have taught in this school for many years in the past, and there's a reason why when you say, like, is it a trusted source? I remember teaching in this very building, like we used to say to our students, if your parents say they love you, check it out, right? Like you can't trust anything, or Wikipedia kind of makes you meditate, like, what do I trust and what should I be trusting, right? So I'm wondering, Sree, what you think of, like, when we were teaching here, Wikipedia didn't exist, but how has Wikipedia kind of changed what you consider like knowledge and knowable and provable?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's so great to be back in the upgraded lecture hall here. Andrew and I taught for 20 years, almost 20 years here, and Aimee and I have been talking about AI and journalism and how things are changing. And Julia and I saw each other last on this podium. She and I organized her interviewing Jack Dorsey. This is at the height of Twitter's previous incarnation, and it was so interesting. If you can go back online and find that interview, and you can see how much the world has changed and how much Twitter has been ruined for various reasons. But I think what Andrew's pointed to and what Aimee's already said is how the world has changed with Wikipedia. When it was introduced here, when people had it at the school, folks were very much pushing back against it. And even this idea that you can get, there's no original research, that still wasn't good enough for people. They were mad about it and things like that. But as Andrew will tell you, in a study of the 2016 elections, the platform that came out looking best in terms, in a very flawed environment, so many problems, the platform that came out looking best in terms of major websites was in fact Wikipedia over all the other social and digital platforms. So that's been very good to see that. One of the things I have a question for Andrew and Julie and everybody here is this idea that Wikipedia's original, most successful, important trait is that it's linking to news articles, right? But we're going into a world where news articles are changing. The very nature of news articles is changing because we've seen multiple examples of fake AI-generated stories, AI-generated journalists, so what is Wikipedia's future in that particular thing? So I hope that's one thing we can tackle today. I don't know if there's a plan B I think Jimmy and everybody, Ward and others, loved journalism, but journalism itself is not where it was 20 years ago. And what happens in the next 20 years? What happens in the next 20 months, these election cycle, for example?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'd like to at least point out the 2 sessions we're having today that are related to what exactly Sree is saying. We do have a panel on reliable sourcing. Are Jenny and Kevin here? Raise your hand. So Jenny Lee and Kevin, we have a relationship with the Credibility Coalition and Hacks and Hackers, which is a very well-known kind of journalism group that engages with the technology on best practices. So they're going to have a session on reliable sourcing and the future of that in Wikipedia. And then we also have another panel on biases. Are the biases people here? Rosie and other folks? Yeah, raise your hand. So we do have one about, is what Wikipedia is doing covering the complete human experience and all of our knowledge, and what are we doing to address some of our knowledge gaps and biases going forward? So I'm glad you mentioned those things. Julia, what are your thoughts on this? And maybe later we can tell the story of how we first met in 2009 when things were much different than they are now.
I know. I feel like we're getting into dangerous territory of how old I am, but I do remember that interview with Jack Dorsey here. It was the day that he had returned to Twitter. So he announced right before the panel he had been at Square and that he was returning to do CEO of both companies. And I remember saying, how does one do CEO of 2 companies? And he was like, it's gonna be fine. But anyways, I am just delighted to be here. I really admire Wikipedia. As a journalist, I've always, of course, relied on it. And as you said, Aimee, the underlying sources is sort of what I teach my kids, right? Like, don't trust anything until you can find the original source for it. But I think we are in a really difficult situation that will be super powered by AI, but already there's lots of unreliable things that you could link to online to justify pretty much anything you wanted to make up. And so that sourcing alone is not enough. But I also think that sourcing has done something that journalists have actually kind of failed to do, which is really engender trust with their audience, right? And we're at a really difficult point right now with journalism. I think there's it's 25% of people trust journalism when they're asked, and that's the lowest it's ever been. And so we're having a trust crisis in journalism. And so I do feel like there's a moment where journalism needs to learn from places that have done well at building trust. And then I guess I just want to throw in a note, though, that I'm worried about AI blowing up all of that.
Right. We haven't even entered into the fact that AI is now so good at producing images, text that just muddy the whole waters, right? In terms of determining what is true or not true, right? And that's really tough to figure out. Yeah. So why don't we get into the AI conversation? Because Aimee, you are now in a position where your official role at the Associated Press is to engage with AI and how it affects not only what the AP does, but how your cooperative works. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I sound like I'm an AI optimist because that is kind of my role. I'm thinking about how can we best use it to build workflow efficiencies, which right now is like the safest island for journalists to work in this space. I don't love AI. I didn't ask for it. It's here. So how can we best deal with it? Because I was at the New York Times in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and I saw how we kind of made a fetal position and like hoped that the World Wide Web would go away. That did not benefit us. So through that experience, I'm coming back with, we have to figure this out. So just a small caveat, I'm not an AI optimist, I'm a pragmatist, and I think we have to get around this, but I think the safest place that AP will experiment with is in workflow efficiencies. I think an organization like AP could end up building a large language model that is the base model for journalism that other newsrooms and other enterprises could fine tune on top of. That is, I think that's a longer, or not such a long-term plan for me, but maybe a longer-term plan for an organization like AP. And I think like a lot of the innovation that I'm seeing in newsrooms are the smallest newsrooms. And that was true of the web. You know, the San Jose Mercury News kicked everybody's butt with the web. Like they were the first online, and you know, then that quickly petered out. But they were the first online to show other people how to do it. And so that's what we're seeing too. Is that I talk to a lot of small newsroom operators, and that's where the innovation is happening. Large newsrooms like the AP, you know, we produce 2,000 stories a day, 3,000 photos a day. So many dependencies. We're working on proofs of concept around headlines, summaries, and translations from English to Spanish. And when we just talk with development teams about the workflow, there's like a million different things that happen before we even get to push publish. So just to say, innovation's probably unlikely to come from the large newsrooms first, but large newsrooms will quickly catch on. But everybody's kind of waiting to see who's going to jump in the water first. And we did research, and one of the first questions when we would talk to a news leader was, what is everybody else doing? That's this industry. Everybody wants to know what everybody else is doing to make it feel safe, but it's not a safe time. And that's not experimentation. Experimentation is not safe. So that's my 4 cents.
Right. And Sree, you've done a lot of training in recent years with newsrooms on AI. What are you picking up in your training with interacting with these leaders in news?
I think the same fear factor is the number one thing. We're also seeing the opposite in some cases where they are optimistic that this will save the business. In a way, you may have seen Bild, the big German publisher, just fired 200 people early last year, and they didn't have a solution. They didn't have a plan, but they said AI will do a lot of this work. They didn't know, they had no plan or anything like that. This gives me a chance just to remind me about another industry I worked in. I was a chief digital officer at the Metropolitan Museum, and the fear of Wikipedia was interesting there. And Richard, if you would wave again, Richard led, forced, coerced, cajoled the Met and my team and everybody, along with Neil Stimler and others, to put the Met on Wikipedia in terms of its collection of art, and did how many images are now available, Richard? Yeah, I mean that's that, and this went from total opposition and fear to where you have now so much art that's available. So I think newsrooms are like that. And Andrew, who had a internet business in January of '94 and started teaching digital here and web here, can tell you that that same fear of AI is the same thing that we saw way back then. And that continues to be an issue, Andrew.
Yeah, that's true. And for folks who may not know, we have a whole side of the Wikipedia community that interacts with the cultural and heritage side called GLAM Wiki, where GLAM stands for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. So, Wikimedia New York City has been very active in engaging these folks in that, to the point where over the years, if you go to the major museums, the Met, Tate, Museum of Modern Art, they're all pointing to Wikipedia now. Whereas, as you said, in the early days, we're like, why would we point to that user-created site? And now folks like the Tate Gallery in London says, we don't have enough staff to do bios of every one of our artists. Wikipedia can do it far better than we can. Go read them. And they point to Wikipedia from the Tate artist pages, which is pretty amazing to see. And that's just very common these days. So the reputation has risen over the years, as Aimee, you've said, because we've cared as a community in Wikipedia about that. We've had some pretty seminal events in Wikipedia's history where we said, oh God, we really did poorly. We got to do better. And I think in general, we've kind of kept going up the charts to the point where I think, as you mentioned, like Twitter and other platforms have come and are fading, Wikipedia is still quite high in terms of reputation. So I'm wondering, this is a good segue, Julia, because you've seen a lot of things happen in our industry. We first met in 2009. I don't know if you want me to tell the story. So Julia and I met in 2009 because I'd written a book about Wikipedia. We're both at South by Southwest, and she was launching her book at the same time. And we were actually sitting right next to each other at the book signing. And I don't know if we can show it here. So this is me, and that's your ear. Sorry, Julia. I don't know. Someone took this picture and only took a picture of me, but that's your ear on the right-hand side of that photo. So we were sitting next to each other, and we didn't have a lot of people signing books, honestly. I mean, South by Southwest, people are getting drunk and listening to music. They're not coming to a book signing. So I remember Julia and I were talking, and it was pretty amazing because she was writing this book. Well, she just launched this book. Well, you want to tell us about your book at the time?
I mean, I just want to say in my defense that I was right that social media was going to be big. I might have picked the wrong platform to write a book about, but their story was actually really super dramatic. And I was attracted to the crazy story of MySpace, which maybe, first of all, see if everyone knows what MySpace is. Yes. Okay. So early social media. And the story was really crazy because the founders of MySpace, actually, it was sold to News Corp without their consent because of a complicated like corporate structure that they had. And I was a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, and there's literally nothing more fun as a Wall Street Journal reporter to write about like a boardroom battle. It was really new. Rupert Murdoch versus Viacom. Tom Freston was there, and when trying to get this little hot website. And so, but my publisher, I turned in the book in January of 2008, and they waited a year to publish it. And I kept saying, guys, you don't understand, Facebook is eating their lunch. And by the time it came out, it was the most popular website in America, like I think for one more month after publication, and then Facebook overtook that. But anyways, yes. So even and it was totally not cool by the time we were at South by, so people were just laughing at me.
No, they weren't laughing, but it's just so interesting. Not only could you have two very different websites sitting next to each other, right, like MySpace and Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is actually not to say anything bad about you folks, but it's not the most exciting thing to write about, right? It is a amazing phenomenon, but the individuals that make up the stories are little stories. But then the MySpace one, as you said, is a business story. It's a boardroom story. It's a can you save this site kind of story, which is interesting. Yeah. But then it's interesting to see how many sites have come and gone as Wikipedia keeps chugging along, 20 plus years into it. And that's somewhat comforting to know that this community can sustain itself in the midst of all this kind of turmoil that's happening in the for-profit commercial world, and that we're kind of, I don't want to say insulated from it per se, but we're not a part of that mix, which is nice to see. But
don't tempt fate,
Don't tempt fate. I know. Well, that's why I think talking about AI is so interesting. So one of the biggest questions we're facing as a community is that we know that the two products that are in front of people, like ChatGPT, Google Bard, any of the things you see, are all very much reliant on Wikipedia. Almost all these sites say, oh yeah, Wikipedia is the corpus we train against. The ones they mention all the time are Wikipedia, Reddit as the big corpuses, and obviously scrape a lot of other stuff. But Wikipedia, we've known for years, is absolutely crucial to Facebook, Apple, Google, all these folks operating and understanding the world by interpreting what we have in Wikipedia. So the question, I guess, long-term is it just kind of a one-time transaction where they suck in Wikipedia's content and then they're going on with their life, and their products might actually start to cannibalize the readership of Wikipedia and I'd say, affect the traffic and the visibility of Wikipedia long-term. And that's something we're kind of thinking about in our own community. So there is a panel in the afternoon talking specifically about Wikipedia and AI. And I think some of the panelists are here, Lane Raspberry and other folks. So you'll see that in the afternoon. But I'm wondering what you folks...
For folks who don't know, what is the setup, the way now the New York Times is suing ChatGPT or OpenAI? What is the underlying structure of Wikipedia for scraping like this?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it more in the afternoon session, but in general, it's absolutely okay for these entities like ChatGPT to be using Wikipedia's content. right?
I think that's somewhat contested, right? So the Creative Commons license that you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but the Creative Commons license that Wikipedia operates under does require attribution. Am I right about that? Yes. So
depends on how you use it, though, right?
well, so the
Yeah.
question is it fair use or not? And I wrote a column about this. I write for the New York Times Opinion on tech policy. I wrote a piece back in the fall saying, what I'm really concerned about is the idea that these for-profit companies have sucked up all this, all of the really best parts of the internet, right? The parts that have been contributed for the public good, right? There's a lot of parts that are commercial. Those are fine, but you know, it's actually increasingly rare to have parts that are really dedicated to the public good, like Wikipedia. And to me, those are real gems. And so I made sort of the analogy to like the tragedy of the commons, which is this idea that you have the public space, like a park or something. But if one company is sending all the way the tragedy of commons is about cattle and overgrazing. So it's about like if one person sends all their cows out to eat all the grass, there's no grass for anybody, right? And I feel like sort of that's what's happening with these AI companies, is that they're scraping up all of the beautiful things that are our public good, and then they're monetizing them for their own commercial purposes. And I mean, I'm just curious, how many people in here are Wikipedia editors? Okay, right. So here's my question. Do you feel good about this? Because like in some sense, you are maintaining the corpus backend for a for-profit company. And I feel like I worry that's going to disincentivize people to participate in the Wikipedia community. That to me is actually the biggest harm that I see, is the idea that people would think, I don't want to contribute to this. This is just the back end of OpenAI.
You can do a survey right now. Ask them.
Yeah, people feel like they're totally fine with the way it stands right now, which is they're just scooping up your stuff and monetizing it. Okay, cool. And then how many people feel like that's going to disincentivize them or others from participating? Okay.
Scrape me, bro.
Don't scrape me, bro. Okay, so we have like, it's kind of even.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we've had this conversation in our community before, and that even before AI, Google has what they call the knowledge panel, right? So in the old days, when you Google something, Google would say, here are the raw results. I'm not going to put my finger on the scale, right? Here's what the Google algorithm came back with. And then a number of years ago, they said, well, maybe you don't want to click through to something. So I'll put this little panel in the upper right-hand corner and actually tell you what the birthday is of this person, where they were born, when they went to school. That all comes from Wikipedia, but we don't get any clicks on it, right? From Wikipedia.
But you do get attribution. And I do think there are some clicks. And the way I understand it is that Google does pay somewhat to Wikipedia.
Not really. So
No.
The good news is kind of good news, is that in the last year or two, there is now a product from the Wikimedia Foundation called Enterprise, which gives a way for Google and the big users to pay for kind of, more reliable access to the information rather than just scraping Wikipedia. But it certainly doesn't make up for the fact that they've got billion-dollar enterprises running on free content. They're certainly not paying back billions of dollars to help support it. That's true. Yeah.
Right. And this is true for journalism too, right? I mean, this is why I was really happy to see the New York Times suit against OpenAI, because I think there are a lot of people out there who will tell you this is clear-cut fair use and it's totally fine. And why are they litigating? And my feeling is it's for the courts to decide. And I think that people who say they know in advance that it's definitely going to be ruled fair use, I think are not correct. I think we have to see what the courts say. But then I also think we as a public have a right to say, you know what? Maybe the rules as written around fair use didn't envision this, and maybe we want to pass some new laws. Because I think truly as a society, we have to think about this question about creating things for the public good and then allowing that to be strip mined and monetized by huge for-profit companies that are actually almost impossible to regulate. No government is large enough, powerful enough to regulate them except the United States, but the United States is not choosing to regulate any of these companies. Maybe has something to do with the fact they're our largest campaign contributions. Who knows? But point is, we're not seeing a big regulatory environment here. And so I'm worried that, like, what kind of society is it if you actually disincentivize all the creation of all art and culture for the public? That seems bad to me.
Yeah, I think that is a real risk of this new generation of AI and stuff that they scrape, but they don't necessarily provide an ecosystem into it, right?
Right. And I'm sorry, I'm talking so much, but I'm going to say one more thing, which is I have been thinking about, like, I would love to use an LLM that was just built on Wikipedia. And there is one that I've been playing with. It's like in beta. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called Wiki Chat or something, but and it's pretty decent. But it is actually, I decided I would build a LLM of my own work because I'm so old, as you guys have all learned, and I've written so many stories. So I've been working for months to build my own chatbot. Like, you could ask it, and it would, because one of the things I've mostly written about tech companies and like all the bad things they've done. And my feeling is, since all the AI is built by those companies, like the likelihood that they're, in the future, when you say like, is it good for ads to spy on me? Like, it'll probably be like, sure, no problem, honey. Like, don't worry your pretty little head about it. So I wanted to make like an alternative bot. And I'll tell you that making these things be accurate is almost impossible. It's trained just on my work and it hallucinates regularly. I cannot get this damn bot to be accurate. And so I worry that like the idea of building counter LLMs, I don't know if it's going to be workable.
Yeah, you're never going to remove the probability part of it, which is the exciting part of generative AI, right? You just don't know what you're going to get, but it's sometimes it's BS, and then you want to fact check it and go to Wikipedia, and one day Wikipedia might not be what it is because they have cannibalized every aspect of monetization. And when our teams have gone to talk to the tech platforms, it was like they're going to eat at every corner of our business. And I will say in the precedent setting, and please correct me if I'm wrong here on copyright, it has often sided with the tech platforms for two reasons. One, it was transformative, and secondly, it was better for the world or made the world better. Laugh. But there's an interesting part of the New York Times, which is the fourth part of copyright, which says, is it going to do harm to that particular business or that industry? And I think that is the strongest element of this case, and something that is very different than previous copyright cases, because this will eat away at all of this. And so it'll be interesting if we have another Napster situation where it's like cease and desist, you may not use this in any capacity. And then the LLM market becomes more decentralized. Julia creates hers, I create mine, AP creates their own, and in which case that might be more interesting, more wild, wild west.
Yeah, but you make a great point in that the landscape is completely dominated by the large for-profit organizations, right? And are we going to have the Wikipedia of LLMs and AI that provide that ethos that is not just we're trying to maximize the dollar, right?
And it's worth pointing out that there are a lot of open source LLMs that people talk about as if they are nonprofit, but they are not. I just want to point out open source is different than nonprofit. So many of them have for-profit missions.
Yeah, that's a great point. Not really.
I mean, I feel like that fiction has been actually cleared up a little bit.
Yeah, you
That's
definitely.
why Microsoft just became the #1 market cap company because of OpenAI.
Right.
That's like yesterday.
That's true. I mean, we are in our community. If you haven't heard, this is fairly new, but within the Wikimedia community, there is an effort to try to do more experiments with LLMs and a whole AI framework. It's a system called Liftwing. It's still tiny compared to what you think of with ChatGPT and Bard, but at least we're experimenting in that area of trying to create a framework where our community can create, an LLM that provides you only answers from Wikipedia, and maybe that can scale up to being a public-facing thing. Right now, it's very experimental. I think you just mentioned, Julie, you're playing with things like that. So we are seriously looking at that within our community, but our horsepower is so much smaller than the big players there, and that's, I think it's always going to be like that, unfortunately. But we also want to make sure that I saw some really nice questions in here. Even if we don't get to answer all of them, I'd love to have you put any questions or comments you have in the Etherpad there. We're going to be doing this throughout the day and the other sessions as well. That just creates a more efficient way to kind of field some interesting questions and some answers. But before we get too far into it, Julia, you have been on the forefront of creating some most innovative kind of startups and things in the news industry. But you have something that you're working on now. Maybe you could tell us about.
Yeah, I'm starting a new newsroom called Proof News. And I honestly would just like to say to all of you, Wikipedia is a big part of my inspiration. I think that journalists have not done a good enough job of being transparent about how they arrive at the conclusions in their stories. And that's one thing that is super great about Wikipedia is that transparency. And so I have always sought to do that in my own work at ProPublica, at the Wall Street Journal, at the Markup, which I founded. But now I'm starting a newsroom that is really almost entirely about the concept of being transparent about what elements led us to our conclusions. And one of the reasons for the choice of the word proof is that I think it's important to learn from science that there's always limitations to every proof. And so being really clear about what are the limitations of the findings and what we know and what we don't know. So I'm actually starting it with an event in 2 weeks downstairs, doing AI testing for election integrity, bringing election officials from around the country. And I've built some software to allow them to test AI to check if the answers to questions that voters might ask are accurate or biased. And they're going to rank and rate those answers. And then I will put that data out into the public so it can be scraped by an LLM. But I do want to contribute some facts to this debate because a lot of people, there's a lot of talking about AI and elections, but there's not a lot of facts. So I'm trying to map the landscape of harms. And so that's the beginning project for proof. And just thanks to the Wikipedia community for providing like a constant source of inspiration that there is a world that will support, great public spirited work.
Right. Great. Since we don't have that much time, I thought I'd ask you folks just kind of what kind of gives you, what gives you inspiration or hope given the emergence of AI from whether it's from the ChatGPT side or from any of the startups there? I know that Aimee, you said you're a realist, which I like. We shouldn't all be super enthusiastic about it, but what gives you hope? What gives you pause in terms of the advent of AI in this Wikipedia age, you think?
I think the bright spot for me was last March when the open source community really cracked open LLMs and kind of brought it out of the realm of the 5 companies that were, where it was financially and realistically possible due to computing power for you to be able to work with this technology. And there was a leaked memo from Google that we have no moat. And I love to see them quake a little bit. They haven't been in that position. And I do think organizations like Wikipedia and the open source community have a lot to teach journalism and the world in terms of how we can take our data back, how we can take our, to me, to get true press freedom, we're going to need to do our own infrastructure. And that we have to do that collectively, that it's going to have to be a radical collaboration and the likes of which we haven't seen. But we've done this before. We bought, 10-ton presses to produce the newspapers that we produced. We don't need those anymore, frankly, and if we can put that money in a collective to be able to power our own stuff, then we'll be able to have true press freedom, maybe freedom, maybe websites like Wikipedia would be part of that collective as well.
What I'm really worried about is how Gen AI is being used already on social media platforms and taking the content and images. And I just came back from India where the huge elections in May, and they're going to be completely ruined, and they already are, by how AI is being used. And news organizations are just not ready, not just in America, but in India and all. There are about 50 important elections this year. We just saw the one in Taiwan. And so that gives me a lot of pause and worry about this. The hope is that unlike the fetal position, as you said, journalists were in the first time around or with digital, I'm hoping that, and I'm seeing, I think journalism organizations are much more open-minded and aware of what's going on. Aimee's appointment was a major, a landmark to show that this is what they understand, that AI is going to be important. The Times only recently, I think many, many months after you, has appointed a great guy in Zach Stewart to be their director of AI initiatives, I think the word is. So I'm hopeful, but still very, very worried about where this all goes.
I mean, as you may have noticed, hope is not my specialty. But I guess one thing that I do like to see is that, you know, the big tech companies have really hidden behind their Section 230 immunity for a long time. So they, for those of you who may not know, there's a law that allows them to not be liable for any content that's written on their website. So that has been allowed for very lax policing, as you have probably noticed if you've spent any time on social media. There's lots of really objectionable stuff that, you know, if they take it down, they give themselves a pat on the back. And if they miss it, they say, oops. But in generative AI, they have created this content themselves. And if they're going to go with the fair use argument that it's not stolen from somebody else, then they're going to have to take responsibility for it. And so I am interested to see how those guardrails emerge because, you know, as journalists, I think Aimee would agree with me. I have been really upset for many years that like the amount of effort I put into fact checking and making sure that every single thing is correct and worrying about lawsuits, and then these companies come in and just sort of rampage around with irresponsible content. I like to see them actually put as much effort into facts as we do.
Great. Let me just relate some of the questions. We don't have to get to all of them, but I thought I'd throw some of them out there and we can see which ones might be interesting or pique some interest. There's a question here about fake cyclic references. So we have had this conversation within our community of what they call cytogenesis, which is that now that Wikipedia is so popular that people start using Wikipedia's content maybe uncited on the internet. Then Wikipedia finds it and starts using that. So it's actually, we're kind of eating our own tail. So we actually are sometimes recycling maybe not verified information that's out there. And I'm wondering if folks have any opinions on that phenomenon. Another question about drawing on news reporting, a lot of sourcing. Well, how do you deal with systemic bias behind the mask of impartiality? Interesting. Someone here says they want to try out JuliaBot. When can we talk to JuliaBot?
As soon as I can make it stop making things up.
It shows you the problem, right? That you have, even though you have thousands of stories, it's still a limited amount and it's still doing hallucinations.
I mean, the thing is, I'm not even sure if it's the size of the corpus or it's just the whole idea of the way it assembles information is this probabilities. And so it just grabs things that are like adjacent. It's like, and makes up kind of just weird assemblages.
Some other questions here about disinformation, misinformation. Question 3, could purging fake IDs for social media and AI establishing true universal ID? So I guess that does get to the question of it's so easy to synthesize fake stuff, right? If you look at some of the images now, you can actually tell the AI, like, basically, like, your images look too perfect. Can you please make them less perfect? Like, make them shaky, selfie-like. And once you tell them that, those images look really, really authentic. So are there any solutions to this? Do we work up the chain to say you need to verify information above? I don't know.
So, you know, there are so many of us who have dismissed Elon Musk, and many people have left Twitter and X and all of that because they're just so upset with him. One of the reasons I'm still there is because I've seen how he has destroyed the value of accurate information on there. And forget everything else, but look at what happened in Morocco with the floods and Libya with the earthquake. The folks who work on the ground on emergency response and first response and accurate information and humanitarian assistance say everything that Twitter could do for them is now ruined because one of the things where you had a verification model, right, with the blue check, it meant something. It wasn't perfect, but it meant something. And now everybody has it, or all the kooks have it. And so now sometimes if you know what you're doing, you can find the people who haven't bought the blue check. They've got not all of them, obviously, but some of them who used to have it. So you need some kind of thing that says they used to have a blue check, now don't, and that they're likely to be someone you can trust. And so that's what we're seeing, that how do you verify people on there? And is there something we can learn from what Wikipedia has done with its own users?
That's a good, if anyone has an answer, put on the Etherpad, because I'm not sure I know what the answer is. But you're right. It's almost like the logic is inverted. Like if you have a blue check on Twitter, that means that you are actually pay for play and you're actually not to be trusted, right? In a weird way. Yeah. I thought I'd close with just one last question or one last observation. Someone asked before when we were getting ready, like, was January 15th, 2001 the actual real day that Wikipedia started? And I realized that a lot of you may not know the exact kind of origin story of Wikipedia. And the fact is, it was started as a last ditch, not last ditch, but as a kind of an emergency response to the fact that there was a company trying to create a conventional encyclopedia called Nupedia. And after 1 year of operation with a very rigid process of like, you must show that you have a college degree to contribute to Nupedia. You need to go through this 7-step editing process to have an article approved on Nupedia. After 1 year, they produced, you want to guess how many articles? 12. Yes, good. 12, like one a month. So they obviously said, I don't think one a month is going to cut it to make an encyclopedia. So that's when they threw the doors open and they said, well, here's this wacky piece of software called the Wiki. Why don't we just put this out on the internet and see if anyone can at least give us some starter content for these articles? And that's when January 15th, 2001, the doors were opened and suddenly there was more productivity in like the weeks than Nupedia ever had in its entire lifetime. And that's pretty much gone nonstop since January 15th, 2001 as a crowdsourced project that has been driven by volunteers the whole time. So that's kind of where we are now. And it's still going in over 200 languages. And hopefully the rest of the day, you'll hear more about some of the experiments. We also have a whole section for lightning talks, quick 5-minute talks, which are usually my favorite of the conference, where people talk a little bit about their projects, their questions, their challenges. And I think you almost always find some great nuggets of information in those lightning talks in the afternoon. So Richard, do you want to come up here and just make sure people know what they're doing next and how the rest of the day is going to go? While I thank you, our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good to have you all. We're going to have a 15-minute break. So we just last minute we decided to finally put breaks in our schedule. So we're gonna have a 15-minute break. At 11:15 we're going to resume. There's going to be a Depths of Wikipedia deep dive back to the beginning of Wikipedia with Annie Rauwerda, the host of Depths of Wikipedia and some other projects. And there'll be some overflow in the world room, and there'll be some editing in the playpen on the first floor. So if you want to join the first floor and maybe you want to get your hands dirty, you want to edit a little bit of Wikipedia, we'd have some volunteers helping with that. And then later at 12:15, there'll be a panel in the lecture hall on bias, AI, and Wikipedia. There'll be a lecture. There'll be a discussion in the world room on AI, art, and archives. And downstairs there'll be a discussion about discovering more about Wiki Project New York City, meet some neat editors of New York articles, and talk a bit about that. And then we'll have lunch later. We'll have lighting talks. We'll have a whole bunch of different activities. But yeah, please, if you have any safe space issues or get in touch with someone wearing one of these vests. And thanks so much for joining Wikipedia Day. And I hope we can, have some real nonprofit alternatives to the tech empires out there. And maybe we're laying some of the paths for that today. Thanks. We do request that you wear masks when you're not eating or drinking or presenting. Masks are available for free. We have plenty of masks for everyone. So please use a mask when you're not, eating or presenting. Thank you.
Somebody else. Oh yeah, somebody else. I don't like COVID. COVID sure likes me.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
All right, so
Thanks,
we might.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. We should have like a little illustration, like what you handshake, elbow, wave. I do publish with elbows. How's your, are you?
Well, yeah.
You're based here. Yes. This guy is big. We are
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's on the computer. Oh, yeah. Watch out, like that crazy idea. But when you visit the pages, these guys are very impressive on Wikipedia. With a very loose set of rules and lots of informal procedures. Everyone started studying it. Yeah. That's I've written something on AI for a while. If you go back, I wrote something up maybe 2 years ago, not something that we were doing with the Hey, thank you. Andrew. This one right there. Yeah, so you can take a look at that article there. Hi, how you doing? Thank you. Andrew. Oh, it's not here?
Yeah, I heard you mentioned that.
Yes. I wish I could, but let me take a look. Wikimedia Lift Wing AI.
I just started contributing with Wikimedia.
Oh, nice.
Wiki data project and.
Oh, is that right? That's great. Yeah, take a look at this. I mean, it's really new. And you know, you can actually take a look at see what they're doing. Right now, they're moving a lot of existing like machine learning models into this new framework. But see if it makes sense if you read it here.
Okay, it's mostly for technical.
Yeah, but even then, like, you know, the nice thing about this community is like not only do they allow volunteers to edit Wikipedia articles, but you can actually get like a real developer account as a volunteer. You have access to like CPU, disk space, machine learning models, stuff like that. So, yeah, take a look at it and see.
Okay, so there's a page for it.
Yep.
I'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, no worries.
Yeah.
May I take a slide?
Sure.
Yeah, I know it's a lot.
Okay. Good.
Okay, I'll definitely read that article.
Yeah, take a look at this one there.
Oh, I didn't know.
We should get Annie up here. Hey there.
What's exactly lifting that you were just showing?
Yeah, that's the new like AI framework that the Wikimedia Foundation is working with.
Seems to be interesting. Are these like models which are trained on the Wikipedia data for images?
Yeah, there's some very specialized models. So there's some models that are trained on like vandalism to detect like good or bad evidence in Wikipedia, but they're trying a whole bunch of different. Hey there. Do you need help time to set up? Is it possible? Is it like Google Slides? Okay. I think it's probably easier because it's all set up with Zoom and everything. So, so if you can find a way to shortcut that or email that to me. No, we haven't done any of that. So that's good. That's a good question. Let me see what I am here. It's take a look at this. Can you send that one there? Okay, let's see if it shows up slides. I go to this. No, it's not that one. Let's see. One by shared with me, not on me. Last of me. No.
Why don't you stand on that side?
Yes.
Sorry, Andrew.
No worries. Trying to see like.
Catch you later.
All right, thanks.
Next video.
That's a No, my son's going back to college today. So.
Hi,
Oh, hi.
We met online, but never
Oh, okay.
the funding. Hi.
you.
Hi, just want to say hi.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah.
I work for Big Now.
Sunday morning.
Nice.
From the fiction.
Like you want to have a Sunday now?
Yeah.
Of the.
Right.
They want.
Yeah. Not bad. We're it's a big crowd.
No, it is
Just like
good.
capacity.
Yeah, no, it's really good, really good. Yeah. All right,
Good.
okay, I'll see you
Let's do
around.
lunch maybe.
Yes.
Okay. Trying to figure out how come I'm not seeing it.
It's called, it's not a very good title.
Wikipedia Day. Let's see. Wikipedia Day. Oh, there it is. Okay, I think you said that too. And I think, do you need to be able to edit it? No, just play it.
It's not a very good opening slide, sorry.
We had like, I mean, we're limited. They,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, huge. Yeah, it's amazing how much you can do. I mean, I'm really happy with the data. Even though I don't. Except whenever I create a new article, I try to create the data. Well, actually, it helped. I realized. I created just last month an article, a New York City related article. Yeah, because back when I worked a lot on December 2013 spike on dive with the rail. And I thought when there wasn't. But I stumbled across this accident in 1882. There's been another accident, similar site. Yeah. Oh, by the way, another photo request besides where George would be the track curve that was from the street curve that. And the track curve there doesn't. Yeah, I was thinking about, ironically, there I was thinking the train last night on the 142nd. But I wrote a whole article, and what I was thinking was nice that there was that I created Wikipedia. Because when I done that, I got that online and added the map to the info box. Without having. Yeah, well, I've actually, I mean, it was an interesting article, right? Because my primary, one of the sources is I don't want New York Times, I'm sure it's funny reading the article, because it was describing in some detail how Berkeley was written, some of the different. I'm thinking, I think they did that in Jesus' house. Because again, how many kids in Mother Five would they wind up burying, what they expect? But it's 1883 Spartan by the Spring. And what I also, I mean, and the other source articles, railways, and I'm thinking, I'm writing, you're really being more of a story. You don't have a lot of fun. Yeah, so I really sort of yeah, having the thought that but I'm glad because right after Christmas, here we are going right to that. The train is back of the stock. Oh yeah, hopefully maybe I'll see like hopefully probably partially caused by what the state legislature fully yeah, and that's not the and they all got drunk. Where's that the rest? Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I had so I put on the train a video.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for coming. I am so excited to be here for Wikipedia Day. I know so many of you, but not all of you. I'm so excited to see new faces. My name is Annie, and before, in the olden days, I would have to actually introduce myself, but now I have just gotten a Wikipedia article, so now I don't even have to introduce myself. You can just read the article, which is better than what I would have written about myself. Okay. Why don't we do the thing? I'm so sorry if you hate standing up, but I'm going to make you do the thing where you stand up depending on when you first started contributing to Wikimedia projects. Okay, so I'm so sorry to make you do this. Let's have everyone stand up right now. And if you started actively contributing to Wikimedia in 2024, you can sit down. I don't know if there's anyone. There's only been a few days. If you actively started contributing in 2023, you can sit down. 22 and 21, 20. Lots of pandemic editors, it looks like. 2019, 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Okay, wow. All right, wait, wow, this is great. Everyone look around at our elders. Okay, so right now we're at the 2008 people, but if you are one of the people standing up, do you want to shout out your name and something that you're proud of contributing to in your time? James, Royal Society.
I'm Daniel Case, and among many things that I'm proud of, one that got a lot of recent attention, murder of D.D. Blanchard. Went over 3 million views after Gypsy Rose was let out of prison right after Christmas.
Wow. Okay. Yes, Rosie. Wow, Arctic shrinkage. Mhm.
And I wrote the original article for Donald Trump's grandmother, Elizabeth Chris Trump.
Anybody else? Kuno.
Yeah, my name is Kunal. I wrote the article with the United States Supreme Court leak, and there was more than one.
Yes.
Hi. Editing since I was in 7th grade, which was 2004. So I just really into it. And what did I do? My specialty is just editing the little headers on the mobile app in case there ever isn't one. Because I find it very helpful.
There are also so many typos in the short descriptions that people don't see when they're on desktop. Anybody else? Mm-hmm.
Want to find out what I thought of my lightning bolt there.
Good advertising and marketing strategy is here. Yes. Who won? Who made the most bacon related articles? Does anyone else want to share? We love our stud makers.
I wrote articles on the Spanish Empire of all things, like no views, so not 3 billion viewers. There was totally one incident where, like, while like Spain was conquering like the Aztecs in Mexico and playing like in Italy, they actually had rebels take over the capital. Imagine if like during the Iraq War, like rebels controlled Washington D.C. You know, things kept on rolling on anyway. So crazy stuff.
You never know when your obscure article is going to become front page news. Does anybody else want to share? Yeah, Ryan. And you also made English Wikipedia's 6,666,666th article, which was demon related, I believe. Yes. Cool. Yes, Andrew.
I'm Andrew. I started editing in 2003, and I created the article on birthday cake. So very appropriate.
Another thing Andrew did was when I went to Wikimania this year, I was in the plane feeling a little anxious before it took off. So I looked up the Wikipedia article for my specific Boeing plane. And then I saw that Andrew wrote the article. And anyone else want to share? You don't have to. Yes, Richard. All right. Anyone else? Yes. Yay. Is that everyone that wanted to share? Okay, well, I'm just gonna continue the rest of the countdown because I'm curious who's the oldest Wikipedian here. Okay, so 2008, stand up. And then if you started contributing in 2007, you can stay standing. Or wait, let me think about this. Sit down if you started contributing in 2008, and then stay standing if you're before that. Okay, now 2007, 2006, 2005, 2004. Okay, are we at 2? Okay. Oh, sorry, there were 2 people remaining at 2004. Or 3 maybe? Okay, 2003, 2002. All right, James, 2002, you're a winner. Being on a stage really tests my ability to count down. Okay, so I like learning about the Big Bang, even though I'm not a scientist who understands it on a deep level. I'm just fascinated by the people that devote their entire careers to studying picoseconds that happened 13.8 billion years ago. Like, the scale we're talking is really crazy. People devote a lot of time to studying divisions of seconds that have too many zeros to even write out. And the reason is because when you look at the very first moments that the universe existed, the moments where space-time was being created, it tells you a little bit about the way the universe is today. So I thought it could be kind of interesting, maybe, to look at the Big Bang of Wikipedia, the moments that Wikipedia was created, because maybe it'll tell you something about how Wikipedia and Wikimedia is today. So first, let's set the scene in January of 2001. So we're setting the scene. top songs were Independent Woman, Destiny's Child, and It Wasn't Me by Shaggy. Great songs. 2 days before Wikipedia was born, George Bush choked on a pretzel and fainted. In 2001, I was not editing Wikipedia. I was practicing my new skill of walking, and look, I did it even on ice. I was so good at it. Also, my mom pictured, I texted her yesterday and I was like, Mom, what was I doing in January 2001? Immediately, she replied with a big list of all the words that I learned how to say that month. So thank you to my mom for that original research. So I was not editing Wikipedia, but anyway, in 2001, people were watching Castaway, which was newly released. People were reeling from the recount in Florida that had just happened, and George Bush would take office, I think, January 20th. More importantly, in January 2001, Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake, who were together at the time, wore the now infamous all denim outfit. The New York Times had a technology section, and some of the articles in it that I enjoyed were breaking news, Starbucks has Wi-Fi now. This is kind of interesting. It's like, what if we had a computer in your hands with a screen that you could hold? Interesting idea. I wonder if it will go anywhere. Another New York Times technology section article was, oh no, cordless phones, sometimes we lose the handsets. I know, let's get cordless phones with many handsets as a solution to that problem. Okay, so in 2001, we're still setting the scene. There was a guy named Jimmy Wales, and this is how his personal website looked according to the Internet Archive. The closest I could get was July. He wasn't famous, which you know because he has to clarify that he's not the Jimmy Wales who's a fantasy professional wrestler or the professional billiards player or the assistant chief of the volunteer fire department in a small town in Alabama. He's the CEO of a website called Bombas, which I'll talk about in a second. But first, I know what you might be thinking. Oh no, guns, lots of guns? That seems threatening. Well, don't worry, it's not. It is photos of him blowing up melons in the desert. There you go. That was the guns page of his website. Okay, so Jimmy Wales, who, if you're in this room, you probably know him as the founder or co-founder, depending on who you ask, of Wikipedia. But before Wikipedia existed, Jimmy Wales was the founder of a website called Bombas. Bombas was like, he describes it as a guy-oriented search engine. It was how you navigated the web before Google. This is a family-friendly event, so I'm not going to show you every page of Bombas. But there were some forums like World's Hottest Female. There was a Babe Report. And something, this is actually really interesting. So they discussed the lives of models and adult film stars in this forum. And I think it's really interesting that it has a very tenuous, maybe even antagonistic relationship with truth. Unlike Wikipedia, the editorial standards are just like a joke. That was Bombas. Bombas had like 1,000 slogans. And so when you clicked the page, it would be a different slogan every time. And as you can see from just a few of the slogans, it was not a serious endeavor. It was not going to be the same as the Encyclopedia Project, which would come. Okay, so Jimmy Wales has this website called Bombas for navigating the web. Then he hires his friend from a philosophy forum named Larry, and he's like, let's make an encyclopedia online. And so in 2000, they made an encyclopedia online, but it was not Wikipedia. It was Newpedia. Again, some of you totally know this, but I don't know. I'm just telling it for you in case you were curious. Newpedia was a website that was, the idea was to have encyclopedia articles about everything under the sun for free. But the crucial difference is that it had a 7-step review process, and it limited its contributors to people with PhDs or who were otherwise experts. And so the problem was that it had barely any articles. in its first pretty much year, like as of January, these were all of the articles. And also, no offense to Nupedia, but like these are decidedly unsexy topics. I was so curious, like a lot of the stuff I didn't even know what it was. And this is a very obscure person from history. Yeah, it just wasn't getting a lot of traction. Luckily, Wikipedia came up as an idea thanks to a conversation. So the first mention of it is on January 10, where Larry Sanger says to the Nupedia listserv, let's make a wiki. It would literally take 10 minutes. We've already found this out. Note the time. Okay, 5 hours later, they said, or wait, is it 5 hours? Something like that. He says, look, I made the wiki. And at this point, it's not Wikipedia because it's on the Nupedia website. And the word Wikipedia has not been written yet. At least we don't have records of it being written yet. Also, it says, speak up if we're going to make jackasses of ourselves. Nobody spoke up, luckily. All right, January 11 is the first time that we have on record of the word Wikipedia being written. He said we wouldn't call it the Nupedia Wiki, blah, 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 Wikipedia. Wiki is a word, this is actually interesting, I just learned this. Wiki is a word that has been around for a while because of Ward Cunningham, who had a wiki in the 90s. And it's named after the Wiki shuttle in Hawaii. It means quick. He was gonna name it his software quick something, but he was like, let's do Wiki, that's more fun. When the American Heritage Dictionary asked him how to pronounce Wiki, he was like, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Wiki. So we've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. Anyway, though, that's just a little aside. So Wikipedia basically exists. And then the first edits that we have on record for wikipedia.com, as it was, according to one archive, the first edits are this. This is the new Wikipedia, Monday, January 15. This is actually, well, but this might not actually be the first edit because Jimmy Wales insists that the actual first edit was Hello World, which he then deleted and he sold it as an NFT, a recreation of it as an NFT. Anyway, though, the records that Wikipedia has right now from Tim Starling show that this is the new Wikipedia. That was the edit to the homepage. Then people edited the article about itself, Wikipedia. People said, or the person that wrote this said, Wikipedia is a wide open encyclopedia project. Who knows where it will go? Not very encyclopedic prose, but we'll give them a pass. The next article, philosophy and logic. Let's work on articles on at least these famous philosophers. We did, and at least did a lot of work there. Then United States, perplexingly, this is the entire article as it first existed. There are only 14 states. It looks like it's in alphabetical order, but it's missing Georgia and Hawaii. I don't know. Thank God we edited it more times. Since then, we've had 49,301 revisions, making it the second most edited article on English Wikipedia behind list of WWE personnel. The very first editor of Wikipedia was Bomis. The username was office.bomis.com, which we now understand to be a clear violation of the username policy, but that didn't exist at the time. All right, that was the first day. Second day of Wikipedia's life was January 16, 2001. The homepage was edited to say a little bit about what the project is. And it included, some people think that this may be a hopeless endeavor, that the result will necessarily suck. We aren't so sure. So let's get to work. Again, thank God they did. Popular music was added. This was the entire article. This was all popular music, according to the very first version of the Wikipedia article. Missing quite a few moments in popular music, but that's okay because more people edited the article. The first named user joined. His name is Scott Moonen. Today he lives in North Carolina and he works at IBM. Seems to be a really nice guy. He had some crucial advice. He said maybe having the logo as the American flag is ethnocentric. What if you did a globe? And then we did a globe. Then Larry Sanger emailed Nupedia to say, Wikipedia is up. Go add a little article. People did. Then on a Friday night at 11:49 p.m., Larry Sanger was like, hey, I've been thinking about weekends just as a concept, and I'm writing about weekends, and you should also write about weekends. I think this is kind of interesting because it begins a long tradition of reading and also editing articles about the day that it is currently. To this day, the article about weekend, which is actually work week and weekend, it gets 1.4 times the normal page views on Fridays. And this website is Wiki Pulse, and it's really fun. The 23rd overall article page was called Why on Earth Would I Want to Contribute to a Wiki? Still something that a lot of people think. In Wikipedia's first 2 weeks, clearly people didn't take it that seriously. Like there was just this like air of like, this doesn't really matter. In a debate, Larry Sanger just responded to someone, well, if you don't like it, find another wiki. Then Larry Sanger emailed the Newpedia people, the ones who were doing the very serious 7-step review stuff, and he was like, Wikipedia L, we have a new listserv for just Wikipedia stuff called Wikipedia L. So hopefully it's the last time you guys ever have to hear about Wikipedia. And it was not. They ended up hearing about Wikipedia more. The first time the Internet Archive saved the wikipedia.com homepage was in March of 2001, and here's how it looks. In some ways, it looks remarkably similar to how it does now. As you can see, in March, there were translations, Dutch, Catalan, and also sort of Japanese, but it was all like with Roman text, like, you know, like ABC type stuff. So people don't always count that one as a true other language version. The very first Wikipedia listserv had 5 members. In its first 6 months, Wikipedia had about 10,000 articles, and whopping 346 were about the book Atlas Shrugged. Here are some of the articles about Atlas Shrugged. Here are some more of them. Just an example of how in-depth we were getting. There was an article about the Madrid in Atlas Shrugged, which was just once mentioned in the book. Clearly we have some fan craft going on. Also, like NPOV stuff wasn't really enforced. Jimbo Wales wrote an article about the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which included the line, if you don't like it, there must be something wrong with you. For the first 2-ish weeks, there were no talk pages at all. If you had things to talk about, you would just put it in the article. For example, there was an article, New York Giants, actually based in New Jersey, no? New Jersey, yes. Then explain to this dumb Alaskan why they are called the New York Giants instead of the Jersey Giants. That was just in the article. The altruism article started out with the line altruism. Altruism doesn't really exist, which made some people mad. And so that was one of the first talk pages. Also, there was a Bush talk, a George Bush talk page that was really early as well. In February 12, 2001, on the talk page for Metallica, Jimbo Wales wrote, I, Jimbo Wales, confess to listening to almost no other music than Metallica. That was the comment. They were really talking in the truest meaning of talk, just chatting, the chat page. There were a lot of problems with early articles because there were literally no citations to be found. For example, someone wrote that Los Angeles was the largest city in the world. Not true. It's interesting to look back, though, because the first article for Hillary Clinton says that she was the brand new New York senator, which she was at the time. And now she is so much more than that. The first version of the article, History Germany, is literally just National Socialism Berlin. That was all the text. The very first instance that we have on record of people blanking a page and inserting vandalism was on the article for the state of Maryland, where someone gave a migraine recipe, or excuse me, migraine like home remedy, and then asked for money. That was on January 24th, 2001. I've never tried this migraine remedy, so maybe it works actually. Maybe I should try it. Back then we didn't like people just didn't really try that hard to learn stuff. They were just making stubs like crazy. For example, the sculpture article literally just says, yeah, we actually we have a really hard time distinguishing this from architecture and other arts. Please, someone come enlighten us. And the first version of the article about Wikipedians themselves is kind of like noble. The curiously brave people who, in the face of the dire threat of disruption, nonetheless post brilliant prose and sometimes patent nonsense. I already talked about this one, but it got an answer. Why on earth would I contribute to a wiki? Because it's fun, educational, and social all in one. Besides, you can correct other people on the spot without asking their permission. Still one of the reasons why many people contribute to wikis. Okay, the first semblance of rules came on February 4th. And the first three rules were explain jargon, avoid bias, and delete patent nonsense. Then 2 days later, Larry came back with a new rule that he added to the list and he put this one at the top. Ignore all rules. If rules make you nervous and depressed, and this typo was in the original version, if rules make you nervous and depressed and not desirous of participating in a wiki, then ignore them entirely and go about your business. This is still on Wikipedia. When the German Wikipedia was made, people had to decide, is this a feminine or masculine word in German? And they decided that it was a feminine noun. And so, Wikipedia, she is a woman. Throughout 2001, the project got a lot bigger, and I looked through some of the old user pages to try to figure out who these people were that first found the project. And it's an unemployed college student, a Turkish neurologist who studied erectile dysfunction, religion professor, AI researcher, a Portuguese man who was interested in global warming, a music school dropout, a Dutch mathematician between jobs, a pure mathematics student in Calgary, someone named Astronomer who created the astronomy article, a computer scientist and weaving enthusiast named Janet. Many people. We had a dream team. And then the first major press to write about Wikipedia, well, there was one small article about Jimmy Wales from a newspaper in Wales, fittingly. But the first major article was in the New York Times in September of 2001. Jimmy maintains that they called him to interview him for this article on September 11. And he has this quote, which I'm paraphrasing, that's like, yeah, I'm kind of surprised that that I was a priority on the day where the New York Times was very busy. But they did interview him on September 11, and then they made this article. And I included the end of the article because I think it's kind of interesting. They say that even if Wikipedia doesn't become a popular resource, it may survive because of what it offers to those working on it. The article was really focused on what it's like to edit Wikipedia, not really what it's like to consume Wikipedia. And today in the media, most perspectives are about what it's like to consume Wikipedia. All right, well, that's my like very brief history lesson, which a lot of people in this room know more about 2001 Wikipedia than I do. So that's just my quick little version of it. But I do think it's interesting to see how we're still figuring it out in a lot of the ways that we were back then. The first edit, this is the new Wikipedia. Who knows where it will go? I still feel that sentiment a lot of the time. We made the first DYK in 2004, and it was literally this. Did you know that a pencil sharpener is a device for sharpening a pencil's point by shaving the end of a pencil? Well, all right, you probably did. That was on the main page, I believe. We're still finding hoaxes. For example, there's vandalism all the time. Some of it is very easy to catch. You can catch this vandalism immediately. Some of it not so easy to catch. I've talked about this a lot because it's my favorite hoax, but there was an article called Jarita Wens about an Australian Aboriginal god associated with victory and intelligence, which was on Wikipedia for an entire decade until a few Wikipedians realized it was not a real thing. And then it's actually a hoax, probably created by an Australian teenager named Jared Owens. One of the people that caught this hoax and deleted the article was New York Brad. I don't think he's actually here, but next time you see him, tell him thanks. We're still discussing how serious a project we should be. Guy Standing, The Economist, no longer has the caption guy standing sitting. Kevin Lasagna, the Italian footballer, no longer is described as having many layers to his game. We try to be a serious project. We no longer have a category songs about the boys being back in town because there was only one song in the category. We no longer describe Will Smith as being in West Philadelphia, born and raised, even though he was. We do, against all odds, have a joke in the list of citations where when we're missing a photo of this dolphin, we say citation needed. That's like the one joke that remains. We still have a motley crew of contributors. One favorite that I have discovered lately is a very niche editor who really only does one thing. He makes pretzels of mathematically significant knots and then takes remarkably blurry photos of them and uploads them to the articles about the relevant knots. It takes a village, really. We're still getting better and better and better. Look at how many times we've edited the meaning of life. We're probably getting really close to figuring it out. We used to have, okay, so there's an article, Why There Is Anything at All, and it used to have multiple issues, and now it doesn't. Maybe that means something. I pointed this out like a couple weeks ago, and people really enjoyed it, but since the Ship of Theseus article was created in July of 2003, it's been edited almost 2,000 times, and 0% of the original phrases remain. It is totally new. Like the rest of Wikipedia, it is changing all the time. Okay, I think that Ryan is here. Ryan, Epic Genius. Yes, Epic Genius is here. Okay, I was told to, okay, I have some trivia for Epic Genius. Everyone clap for Ryan. Okay, you can, I think the best way to do this is for you to take a seat. A little intro for you is that you are like one of the most prolific contributors on English Wikipedia and definitely the most prolific New York City transit contributor of all time. You've written articles about like all the transit topics in New York City. Also, how long is your daily editing streak these days? I think there's a mic that you might be sitting on.
Oh, my daily editing streak. So I've been editing every day since September 2018. So that was I don't know how many days that is.
Every single day, not missing a day. You beat a lot of the bots.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I have a few trivia questions for you, just about general Wikipedia stuff. The first one, don't look at the screen.
Okay.
I said to close your eyes, but just don't look at the screen. You don't have to close your eyes.
All right.
Okay. Which subway stations in New York City get the most page views? I have a list of the top 5, and I want to see if you can name the top 5 subway stations in New York that get the most page views.
I guess 96th Street on the 1 because there was a recent train crash, Times Square.
No, I'm looking at the past full year. Maybe that changes it.
Oh, okay. So I guess Times Square, Fulton Street.
Yes.
Grand Central.
Wait, what was the third one?
Grand Central.
Not Grand Central.
Oh, that it is Union Square?
Yes.
Herald Square?
No.
Okay. Borough Hall? Atlantic Avenue?
I don't think so.
Coney Island?
Mm-mm. Oh, sorry, they're in Manhattan. It's the category in New York City subway stations in Manhattan. Sorry, guys. Sorry, but but you got Fulton Street, Times Square, and 14th Street, Union Square. There's 2 more.
Cortlandt Street? South Ferry? I'm just throwing names out here. Columbus Circle. I think I said that right. 168th Street.
Are you ready for the answers?
Yeah.
Okay, it was Brooklyn Bridge City Hall / Chambers and Canal Street.
Oh.
I'm still impressed. Okay, my next question for you is, after 65,000 words of discussion over 15 years, what have Wikipedians decided to title the article on this thing? Looking behind you, you can look now.
Warren?
No, that is not correct. We still titled the article Maze, much to the chagrin of many talk page people who do not like that we call it Maze. Anyway. All right, next question. Why was the girlfriend article nominated for deletion 8 times?
Probably disambiguation page? I have no idea.
The reason was because people said I was kind of expecting it to be like I don't have one, so it must not exist. Or maybe like a bad reaction to a breakup, just deleting the entire concept of girlfriend from the encyclopedia. But the reason almost every time was Wikipedia is not a dictionary. Every time it was kept. Okay, next question for you, Ryan. Which of these lists has the most items? Oh, okay, good. I didn't give away the answer. Which has the most items? Helicopter prison escapes, people who have lived in airports, people who have died on the toilet, or people who disappeared mysteriously at sea?
I'm going with died on a toilet.
I believe, you should check me because I haven't totaled these up in a couple weeks. I believe the answer is those of people who disappeared mysteriously at sea. Very long.
Mildly disappointing.
Okay, and my last question for you, Ryan. Which one of your articles that you created gets the most views in the past month? And don't look at the screen because I'm going to show everyone the answers.
One of the World Trade Center articles.
Yep.
There's 2 of them.
Yep.
I don't know how many articles I created, so I can't even I can't even tell which other ones.
Well, you got the first and second ones correct immediately, so I give it to you.
New York Stock Exchange building.
Yeah. That's number 8.
The construction of Rockefeller Center.
Maybe we should be reading that. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Maybe a last week tonight article.
Nope.
Nope. Some article about some building. I'm just gonna take a wild guess here. I'm gonna say, yeah, actually, I don't know what buildings would have like high article count, view counts, unfortunately. So, yeah, let me think about it, and because I have no idea what buildings would have that higher view count.
Because they're all interesting to you.
Yeah,
they're all your babies.
Yeah.
You can also you got the first and second one correct. Do you want to see the answers?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. New York City subway map. 1 Vanderbilt. 7 World Trade Center, 1987 to 2001, which I guess counts in your first guess of the World Trade Center articles. City Corp Center engineering crisis, Omni, and New York Stock Exchange building.
Yeah, I should have guessed 1 Vanderbilt. Yes.
Are these good ones that deserve all the page views, do you think?
Yeah, I think all decent. Like,
knowing you, they're probably good articles.
Yeah, four of them are either good or featured. I know that for sure. So
nice. Well, everyone, give a round of applause to Ryan. That is all I have. That was my tiny little overview of Wikipedia's Big Bang. There's so much more in there when you talk to the actual people that were there. But when you're looking at the actual Big Bang, really all you're going off of is telescopes and cosmic background radiation. And all I went off was archived pages and old emails. So not a complete picture, but it does tell you a little bit about how the encyclopedia was, and a little bit about how it is today. Thank you so much for coming and for being here. I will see you. Yeah.
I would like to add to your cosmic and radiological thing, because 15th of January or 14th of January. The 14th and 15th of January is a fantastic celestial event, which is called Makar Sankranti or Bihu, or many names across Indian subcontinent, because the sun, in its trajectory, it crosses the traffic of Capricorn. So it's celebrated all across the Indian subcontinent and always falls between 14th and 15th of January, and considered one of the most auspicious days of the year, in which the Wikipedia is also celebrating its birthday, and also signifies like a hope and the harbinger of the spring.
Wow, well, I didn't know that. Thank you. I even checked before this if it was a full moon on the day Wikipedia was created, and it was not. Thank you. See you later.
Thank you, Annie. Thanks, everyone, for that look back to 2001, the day that Wikipedia was founded. Also founded in January 15, 2001, Creative Commons. Happy birthday to them, too. We're having a break for a few minutes, and at 12:15, we'll resume with 3 sessions. We're finally breaking out. In this room will be Bias, AI, and Wikipedia, Problems, Progress, and Projects panel. In the World Room, there will be AI, Art, and Archives. And downstairs in the Play Plan/hacking area, there will be a live editing session. If you want to learn to actually edit Wikipedia with some Wikipedians, we have some volunteers from Wikimedia New York City, and you're going to discover more about Wiki Project New York City, how to write articles related to New York City, whether that's some of the transit infrastructure or buildings that stuff like Epic Genius has been working on, or anything else New York related, or just if you just want to learn how to edit and play around, you can join that in the sort of hacking room downstairs. So yeah, so those 3 downstairs. In 15 minutes, there'll be discover more about Wiki Project New York City. In the World Room, AI, Art, and Archives, and in this room, Bias, AI, and Wikipedia panel. Thanks.
There are probably other places that
Oh my gosh. Great. I love that you've done I had noticed that.
Anyway.
That's where I got. I thought you did a great job.
And James is going to join the panel. I'd like to add James's name to the slide. Her name is Forrester with 2 R's, so alphabetically wherever he would fit. I still haven't seen Jordan, nor did I get Jordan's bio. I would say what I do. So above Eleanor would be James Forrester, pronoun he. He said, in answer to the question, he said, whatever. What do you think I should do? Yeah. The question is pronoun.
Oh.
Slide. And the answer was whatever. No.
So Jordan,
First name is, Jordan is not.
no, Jordan.
Yes, Jordan.
Oh, no, Jordan Jr.
Okay, so James Forrester.
Yeah. And I was like, I think that.
Forrester.
And then just.
Yeah.
And he like, so I wanted to make like a comment.
So we can start when I find.
So I have.
Permits are
Yeah.
But I don't know where Sherry is.
Sherry's here. I think she's in the other room.
It's already, what time do we start? So she's got.
I think she's driving through because she's really hungry.
There she is.
How are you? Good. Very nice to meet you. Adding people. Yeah. No. I'm very wrong. Five minutes. The restaurant's on the floor. On the. You met Eleanor, right? Yeah. Okay. Right back. Yeah, that's right.
It was a separate. These are my glasses.
I lose my glasses on my head. It makes me feel better. No, I can find this up here. Oh, that's a Rosie. Actually, Rosie, do you want to call them up or do you want them up here?
I'm looking for,
File?
I think that, how about they can run up, that's,
Yeah, sure.
okay, so, so this sent to me, and I can't seem to see it. I got yours. Yeah, can you send it to Rosie Step, or the site? Is it sending it maybe to my WMF account? Now, or?
The airdrop I thought would go straight to the computer, but I'll email it.
I probably have to log on to Optus, so let's see, none of those. It would be Rosie Step, ROSIE, STEP @gmail. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining the panel. Yeah, for some reason. You spelled it right. Yeah.
said you want us to sit down.
Yeah. I thought that was quite interesting how, I don't know if you were here first thing, when Molly was doing the introductions to the very first panel. For some reason, I'm not getting, I'm online and I'm not getting emails.
I would want to read it. I would.
Yeah.
Or I can give you the, just the one that, right. just the-
Sherry's, James. Actually, Molly's, I don't know. Jordan, McRae. McRae.
A designer. No. He works as
Works as.
I love your and also serves as agile instructor at the Rauwerda.
Wow.
His work.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Design,
His work has leveraged AI in several ways to reach creators.
Wait a minute, I don't have this fast. His work has leveraged AI to.
In several ways. To reach creating solutions for various.
Do you know a guy whose name is Aki Rodich, who went to the Rhode Island School of Design? No. I don't know if he's older or younger than you. Okay. And so the only one I don't have is. Okay. So we'll start whenever he wants to start.
I was also thinking about no, but I'm saying we're not.
Yeah. Sure. I mean,
So that I guess that's one of
Does this might work or? Hello, Wikipedians. Hello, Wikipedians. If you saw me in the morning, I apologize. I was a heel. I require a face turn. You probably know my name is Molly Stark-Dean. I want to introduce our next Wikipedian. She is a visiting scholar at Northeastern University, where her work focuses on pre-20th century English literature women writers and their works. She co-founded Wiki Women in Red, an international organization focusing on improving Wikipedia's gender gap. In 2016, Rosie was honored as Wikipedian of the Year and Women in Red shortlisted for the ITU UN Women Gem Tech Award. Rosie was knighted partly because of her Wikipedia achievements and activism in 2018. She joined the Wikimedia Foundation's Board of Trustees in 2021. our moderator, and my wiki godmother, Roby Stephenson Goodnight.
Everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here today. This is the panel that's going to talk about Wikipedia and biases and AI. So let's introduce next our panelists. First, Sree Antoine is a free knowledge advocate committed to representation and access to information and technology. She is the executive director of AfroCrowd, an initiative aimed at championing the African diaspora on Wikimedia projects and online. Sree joined the Wikimedia movement in June 2015 and has played a key role in AfroCrowd's growth from a local New York-based initiative to an award-winning Wikimedia user group with partners worldwide. Sree holds an MPA in International Management and has organized and spoken for AfroCrowd at the United Nations, numerous colleges, GLAM institutions, and others. She works with scores of groups within the Wikimedia community and represents AfroCrowd to the Wikimedians of the Caribbean user group, where she is the lead organizer. She recently represented AfroCrowd at the inaugural Wikimedia Women's Summit at Wikimedia Singapore 2023. Sree spent years in public service and outreach in public and private sectors, is a left-handed polyglot, and a classically trained funk and jazz violinist. Let's give it up for Sree. Sree, where are you? Come join us. Eleonore Fournier-Tombs is the head of Anticipatory Action and Innovation Research at UNU Center for Policy Research and the research lead for the United Nations AI Advisory Board. She has worked as a data scientist in both the private sector and multilateral organizations for over a decade before focusing on technology policy. Her doctoral work at the University of Geneva used machine learning techniques to measure deliberative quality in parliaments and online political discussions. Eleonore teaches regularly in cybersecurity and new technologies for international corporations at McGill University and Université de Montréal. She is the author of a recent book published by Palgrave Macmillan entitled Gender Reboot. Let's give it up for Eleonore. Eleonore, where are you? Bring it down. Jordan McRae is a designer and educator. He works as a creative in the Wikimedia Foundation's brand studio and also serves as an adjunct instructor at the Rhode Island School of Design. His work has leveraged AI in several to reach creative solutions for various design challenges. Jordan, come join us. James Forrester, a longtime Wikipedian who made his first edits in 2002, and as we learned today, started editing Wikipedia before anyone else here. James helped found the English Wikipedia's Arbitration Committee, co-organized the annual global Wikimedia conference called Wikimania for the first few years, and has worked for the Wikimedia Foundation on various projects, including Visual Editor and now Abstract Wikipedia. James. And lastest but not leastest, Molly Stark-Dean. She introduced herself at the start of the conference. I don't have her bio right in front of me, so let's use our memory to remember all the great things that she's done. Molly is also here to represent Women Do News. We're going to learn a little bit about that. Molly. All right. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started here. Did you know that 8 out of 10 people who edit Wikipedia are men? Did you know that on English Wikipedia, 8 out of 10 biographies are about men? And did you know who reads Wikipedia? That 7 out of 10 readers are men. Those numbers are striking to me, and to some, when they first hear it, they say, I had no idea. I didn't know that there were so few women readers of Wikipedia. That's across all kinds of articles, not just focused on what women might like to read. Or they'll say, 8 out of 10 editors are men. Did not know that. Why aren't women also editing? Why aren't minority genders also editing? And then the content. Even though there are groups who are working very hard to change the percentage, it's an uphill climb because no one is saying stop creating articles about men and only focus on women. We say create articles about everything and anything, but if you have time, create an article about a deserving woman, someone who's notable, who meets the requirements, the Wikipedia policies. So with that as a start, to talk about a bias, the gender bias. We have a lot of other topics regarding bias that we want to touch, and also how AI might be affecting bias, but certainly might be affecting Wikipedia. And so what I want to do is I want to start with the first question over to you, Eleonore. Eleonore, you have said something that started off with collective intelligence, and then AI exemplifies the limitations of collective intelligence. Where are you going with that? Tell us a little bit about what's in your mind.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. So as you mentioned in the introduction, I've been studying deliberation a lot over the last long while, actually. I'm very passionate about it. I didn't really know why, and hopefully I'll figure it out at some point. But one of the things that we talk about a lot when we talk about deliberation and the collective is using Wikipedia as kind of a prime example of the power of bringing ideas together and converging on knowledge, which is the notion of collective intelligence. And artificial intelligence is really interesting because if you think about what intelligence it is trying to create, it's actually trying to create collective intelligence, not individual intelligence. So it's mimicking the exercise that Wikipedians have done over the last few decades. And that's what artificial intelligence does in a way. It gathers, mashes up a whole bunch of different sources and converges on an output. And that's especially true with generative AI, but also other kinds of AI bring together different kinds of data and then create an output. So I think that's really interesting. And when you see the risks of AI, which is something I work on a lot at the UN, it kind of mirrors some of the risks and biases that you're talking about in a collective intelligence exercise. And so from a gender perspective, and from a perspective of any population that is historically marginalized in society, you have big risks of AI, which are discrimination. So having a different output for a certain group based on their belonging to that group, stereotyping, which happens a lot in generative AI. You have exclusion, which not participating in the development of the technology, not benefiting from it, which is something that you just talked about with collective intelligence. So you have all of these different elements are exemplified and kind of highlighted in AI. So I think one of the things that we're going to talk about today is one, how are we going to address these issues as AI becomes more pervasive, becomes more widely used in Wikipedia and also in other tools, how are we going to really think about and address those different biases? And also the question of thinking about Wikipedia also as a key source of information for artificial intelligence, which is also a big issue. So one of the many reasons why AI, generative AI tools in particular, have so many gender biases is also because they were trained on biased data. And one of the sources of that data is actually Wikipedia. So there's like a kind of a cyclical issue here to really start addressing, which I'm really happy to be on this panel to start talking about.
Thank you. That leads me to wonder, Molly, about this relatively new project on Wikipedia that you are co-founder of and active in called Women Do News. And so I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about that and how you're dealing with the issues that Eleonore has just described regarding bias and AI's challenges with that.
Well, so I got involved with Women Do News because I've been a journalist all my life. I've worked for CBS News, Fox News, Reuters, CNN, if it's a news organization, I've probably worked there. And I was really interested that women in journalism specifically, there aren't many articles about them. And it's because of this Women in Red project that that's why I called Rosie our Wiki godmother, because we really want to make sure that there are women in journalism who are on Wikipedia, especially these female journalists who go off into other countries trying to say, oh, by the way, I should be here. And this is the type of work I'm doing. And to have a Wikipedia article about them makes them more notable. And now there's that weird cyclical nonsense of well, they're not notable enough because they didn't win any awards. So we have a whole nomination process. So I'm so happy to be on this panel because there should be more diverse people on Wikipedia.
Thanks for that, Sherry. You have done so much as the executive director and even before becoming the executive director with the organization called AfroCrowd, which spans the globe. And so I'm really curious, tell us about the work you're doing regarding bias, but really curious if you've started using AI in some way to kind of help you along with your work.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. And thank you for, by the way, you don't know this, but Rosie has been one of the inspirations for a lot of us in the movement in general. And I remember the year that I really got active with Alice Backer, the founder of AfroCrowd. It touched the year that Rosie became Wikipedian of the Year. And because of that, and just seeing how she was valued for what she was doing, and also the ways that she was touching so many people on the issue, especially of gender on Wikipedia and Wiki projects, it gave a lot of encouragement for what AfroCrowd was doing. Well, to me, Sherry, I can only speak for myself. And it also was encouraging to see how the community was embracing, taking a look at gaps and areas that could be improved. And this is one of the few communities that I know of, and I worked with a lot of different organizing projects since I was maybe a freshman in high school. And something that I noticed right away was that even though and nothing is perfect, even though there were issues that were definitely coming up, especially in the area of bias, especially in the area of something that we care a lot about, general representation, the community was willing to take a look at it and see what could be done. And one of the things about AI that I find very promising is that communities are seeing already there are issues. We had someone in South Africa at Wikimedia, I believe it was 2017, where 18, where Joy Bangwemi, a Ghanaian digital activist, was a guest. And this was pre all that we are looking at now, I believe, in general about AI. And she was talking about some issues that she was seeing in bias just in those early stages. And I really, really was heartened and loved the fact that all these miles away from home for so many of us, were willing to come together and listen to what she had to say. Not only that, but spend some time looking at it. And I believe that something about this community, this global community, that is really special, because you can see that people really want to make it the very best that it can be. Tomorrow, you talked about what we're doing. Tomorrow, AfroCrowd is holding editing clinics. And there's 2 of them this year. We've been doing them for several years. It's in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And something special for us especially is that January 15th is Martin Luther King's birthday. And what else is it? It's also Wikipedia's birthday. Do you know that even though Martin Luther King Day is on, maybe sometimes it's a different day each year because it's supposed to be on a Monday, that accidentally Wikipedia was launched on his actual birthday. And that's something that's very special because he is an advocate for freedom. And we, I believe, feel freedom of information, that's a whole other topic, freedom of information, but the ability to access information freely, no matter where you are in the world, I believe is something that's very synergistic with the ideas that we care about and that we hope that will continue to be expressed as we go. So I'm sorry for my long-windedness and my slightly emotional appeal. That's how I am. But so you asked what we're doing. So tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. and at 1:30 p.m., we're inviting folks to come by and edit with us and help other people who are new to Wikipedia edit as well. We've been trying to have at least one event somewhere in the world since 2015 and Wiki related. And sometimes we miss the day, but we've overall kept active. And we're going to keep doing that every month this year as well. So just take a look and keep in touch, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for that, Sherry. Jordan, I have heard you are working on a project that I know nothing about. What are you working on?
Wow, I'm not. I wonder what project that is. I work on a lot of projects. The project that I came to talk about today has to do with teaching AI to kids. I give classes to students aged 13 to 17. They're offered by the Rhode Island School of Design, but to high school students, covering a wide range of topics from branding and marketing to art and social justice. And what I've started doing is it not on? Oh, it just on. Is it on now? Was it not on the whole time? Did you hear me though? Okay.
We could. I don't know.
Where was I? Yeah, high school kids, classes incorporating AI. And what's special about that age is that these kids have a lot of grand ideas, profound ideas, angsty teen ideas, but they haven't necessarily gotten the experience to have the skills to make them, to create them. And so AI allows them to fill in the gaps of skill. And so what that means is there are varying levels to how useful it is. Some students are already more competent than others, but for the students who begin to rely on AI more heavily, they develop a new skill, how to interact and talk with this AI on a technical level, but also from a creative artistic level. The classes are online, so the students are checking in from all over the world, from China and Japan to Australia to different parts of the US. And so they're have all these respective cultures and identities that by using AI and being active disruptors, by using it, they're forcing these models to think about them and their communities. And so that's the way that we fight back in our little classroom setting.
Thank you for that. James, you are working on the newest sibling project within the Wikimedia movement, Abstract Wikipedia, and Wiki Functions. And I'll bet that a lot of people in this audience don't know a thing about that. What can you share?
Well, so first of all, I just say thank you very much for inviting me on this panel and to be amongst such amazing people. So I'm leading the Abstract Wikipedia team at the Wikimedia Foundation. We are building Wiki Functions, as you say, and the idea, the hope, is that Wiki Functions will be this platform that will allow us to achieve this thing we've got in our heads called Abstract Wikipedia, where we'll be able to take the power of the community, take the content we already have, and in a community-controlled way, not some kind of generative AI that, you know, magic goes in, magic comes out, and no one can control it, but something very much in the hands of the community, we can automatically create content. Because if you look at all of the topics that are in Wikidata, there are about 50 million things that have a Wikipedia article somewhere in some language. But even if you speak English, you only have 7 million articles in English. So there's 43 million articles you don't have. Now, sometimes that's, you know, the English Wikipedia has decided they don't want that content. But sometimes that's just the community's not got to it yet. And so there are these big content gaps, even if you're in the hugely privileged position of speaking English. If you speak a less well-resourced language, and we're talking languages not like French and Russian, but like Igbo and Dagbani, you have a community of millions of people that speak that language, millions of you are online, and you go onto Google, you go onto whatever search engine, you type in a word in your language, and nothing comes back. There's nothing there. You know, Igbo Wikipedia, I think, has 3,000 articles. Community working really hard, but that's not it's not a joy to be like, oh, I can always find stuff that's relevant to me in my community. And so often people end up using their imperial language, their, you know, culturally imposed language, to not just look something up on the internet, but how they think about things, how they learn about things, how they conceptualize themselves. We want to give the communities the power to generate those articles themselves based on structured data, and then spend their resource, spend their time on things that are actually important. There are lots of, you know, boring things you can write about the planet Jupiter that are the same in every language. There are very few things that are specific to your culture, and the hope, big term, for Abstract Wikipedia is that you'll be able to build on that. But, you know, it's a dream, it's not a reality. I don't want to sell anything that isn't there yet, right? But it's where we're going, hopefully.
We started late, so I think we have a couple of more minutes that we can go over because of that. Something you probably don't know about me, Molly. In 1945, my mom became a student here at the Columbia School of Journalism. She was straight out of completing her baccalaureate at Barnard across the street. That way, I think. And then the war, that way. And then the war, World War II ended, and she went back to her home country of Yugoslavia. She's Serbian. She went back to Belgrade. So women journalists have a very soft space in my heart. I know that until November, I guess it was, that Women Do News was a off Wiki organization. It still is, but that in that, I think that month, November of last year, it became a Wiki project on Wiki. And I'm curious if what kind of effect has that had? Are there more articles than ever being generated? Are people like joining, new editors, people you may not have known of before? And particularly, are you hearing from people from around the world, or are they congregated in a certain area or certain type of journalism? Like, what's changed since you became this on Wiki presence?
So Columbia is the only journalism school I didn't get into. So good for your mom. But I went to NYU journalism school, and like the Wiki project has really, I mean, that's why I call Rosie our Wiki godmother, because at Wiki conference North America, Rosie just really put the fire under my butt, and I just wrote the code for it on the Wiki train back to New York City, because I was just like, we need a Wiki project. We need to get, and we got people. So Women Do News has a website. It's womendonews.org. You can sign up and you can see, you can nominate people that you want on Wikipedia who are women in journalism. And it really helps people. We see people from that Wiki project either on on Wiki presence really helped, because you're right. Like, it helps get other Wiki editors in and thinking about, oh, I should be writing an article about that. And that really has seeped in and trickled down over to our Slack channel and to our Women Do News calendar, like all these other, Women Do News is a guerrilla organization. We just like show up to conferences and say, we're going to edit Wikipedia. Literally, we go to journalism conferences normally, and WikiCon North America was our first time where we actually went and hung out with Wiki editors. So we were so excited to make the Wiki project, and so grateful that the Wiki project has been started now.
I want to talk about Wikipedia, Wikimedia, and AI. And one of them is called Women in Religion. That project started in 2018 in Toronto at the World's Parliament of Religions. The World's Parliament of Religions started in 1893 and has met more or less every 3 years since. And at the one that convened in 2018 in Toronto, the women who attended said, we want a plank where we work on improving the representation of women in religion on Wikipedia. For we see all of these men's names are colleagues, and that's absolutely great, yay. But what about the missing women? We're going to work on that. And they have since then, and they've been very successful. So successful that and might I say that this isn't women working on women's articles. This is a societal problem, right? So it's people of all genders who are working on this issue at Women in Religion. And what they have done in the spring and summer of 2023 started, and they're continuing the work, is they're using AI to see how they might generate a biography about a woman. What would that look like without publishing it? And what would it look like if they had written it themselves? And by doing the comparison, learning some things. I heard someone say that he finally created and published an article that was classified on Wikipedia as B class. It's a scoring that ORAS predicts, but we won't get into that right now. And so a pretty high level quality article. And he said, using AI and using, and then, making the changes myself, human generated information. It took me several hours, long time to create this article. What if I had used AI to help me just start some articles, some start class articles that would have taken me a snap in time and allowed the rest of the world to then continue working on these articles? What would have been a better use of my time? So they're thinking a lot about how to use AI, and this is one example. And the second one comes from Netta Hussain. Some of you may know her as a very long time veteran Wikipedian who is a doctor now, a radiologist in Sweden, who is behind on Meta Wiki project Women's Health. And what she has done there is made a very long, detailed list that is clickable regarding women's health, from making trees of information that she that she generated from Wikidata, as far as different kinds of issues related to women's health, to things like, what can you do if you're new and you know nothing about what I can do to improve content regarding women's health? And she gives lists, things like lexemes in Wikidata, things like uploading images into Wiki Commons, things like adding a paragraph on a particular topic in a women's health article where a particular paragraph is missing, and there's information about that in peer-reviewed journals. And if you have that expertise, maybe that's what you would like to do, not create an article from scratch, just using AI, be able to help you create a paragraph by synthesizing information and then using your brain to go ahead and then write that actual paragraph. She's also using AI to help with the lead section of Wikipedia articles about women's health. So as you can imagine, health articles can be quite long, quite detailed, and difficult for the average reader to understand. And using AI to synthesize the data that's already there without introducing anything new, no hallucinations, no new references, no new sources, she's been able to improve the lead sections of articles. She's still in an experimental stage with that. And the conversation we had is, so how do you deal with attribution? I'm very curious about that. How do we deal with attribution if we've used some AI form to help us with even if we then later make a change, do we attribute it and how do we attribute it? So that's an ongoing conversation. Won't get into that any further. I think we're at time. And so I'm going to say a big thank you to our panelists for the things they shared with us. And I think we're breaking now for lunch, or do we still have a few more minutes? Who's in charge?
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah, please. I don't know who's in charge, but if we have time, yes, we have time.
Okay, so in my long-windedness, I forgot to mention our AI stuff. So we want to, without the data to train AI, you're going to continue to have gaps. And there are many groups that I believe, not just ours, but others, that are in a good position to supply that data to train the AI, to train the algorithms. And if you are interested in, I'm connecting with Jordan in a few months, and we're going to try and work on seeing what we can do to get that data out there. And that includes visual data. So if you've ever gone to Wikimedia Commons, for example, and you don't, and you look something up, something mundane and simple like home or hospital, or I'm a pit bull fan. I'm an aunt of a pit bull, and they're often discriminated against. And I love my, I love that they're. I'm using a stupid example because we're running out of time and I'm just pulling up my head. What I'm trying to say is we are in a very good position as this body, global body, to do something to improve the visual data as well in a way that can be meaningful. So if you're interested in being a part of that project, we're going to meet with folks on Governor's Island. There's a few months to plan. It's in June, to try and see what we can do to at least talk about talk about it in the sense of representation in AI, as well as try and get some folks like Jordan and others to kind of keep the conversation going. And so if you're interested, I'm going to put a sign-in sheet at the back, and hopefully we can talk about it some more.
Eleanor, I'm going to give you the last word. You know, we've talked a lot here today about missing content as a source of being biased on Wikipedia. And there will be a panel later today on misinformation. But I wonder if you can have the final word on AI and disinformation for us.
Sure. I'll try to be brief. So misinformation and disinformation are a little bit different. Disinformation is content that's created intentionally in order to do harm, whereas misinformation is content that's propagated usually unintentionally. So often maybe health news or health content is more on the misinformation side, and hate speech would be more on the disinformation side. And so one of the things that we've been looking at a lot is the way in which generative AI can really be used for disinformation to accelerate kind of hate speech and campaigns against specific groups of people, and what impact that might have on conflict. I think to bring this to the current conversation, I think that there's a risk of the internet being kind of flooded with content that is, hate speech or prejudicial against certain groups. So against women, against different groups of the population, and so on. And from a conceptual basis, it's really important to bear that in mind and to start thinking about how to counter that information. And I think Wikipedia is a really important platform, and it's a source of information about our society. And it kind of tells us what is important to our society today. And basically, it's kind of like a whole repository of what's important to our society today. And the importance of gender representation in particular on this platform is immense, because when we say that, there's not enough articles about women who have contributed to our society, we're saying that actually the great inventions and the evolution of our society has been led by men, right? And so we're saying women have not contributed, and we're continuing to replicate these kinds of old tropes. These old tropes of women have been relegated to the private sphere. They're really good at nurture. And they're not good at making our society evolve and coming up with new things. And so I think that the effort of really thinking and bringing to light the expertise and the immense contributions of women is really, really, on Wikipedia, is extremely important, can have a really big impact on countering disinformation narratives, and also on changing this idea, this threat, I think, of kind of like a creeping reversal of gender roles that could happen on the internet.
Thank you so very much. That's going to be the last word. Thank you so much, panelists. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you. And now, Richard, I think, or someone will tell us about lunch.
I will. Thank you for that. That was tremendous. The knot of people in the back have found the deposit of pizzas. There are also food in the world room. The Haitian patties, chicken, beef, spinach, and I can't do that noise, but yes. I try.
And how long do they have for lunch?
We have an hour for lunch.
1 hour. So be back at
2. Enjoy. And thank you all again. By the way, it's snowing outside. So it's a wonderful time to be inside, warm, talking about Wikipedia. Thank you.
So I wanted to ever have, I used to, I used to with Harold. Anybody know him? Yes, yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, no, I seen him. I mean, it's really hard to get it. He's very, he's been kicked off. He's been kicked off with Wikipedia for what he does. He's very good on things. And it's hard to always land these stories, but I mean, I always go back and forth with him. I talk about how, like, you know, similar stories.